This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I'm Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. Embryo adoptions. A very light topic for your new year as this podcast comes out on January the 13th. Happy New Year. I don't know how long you can say that until no one cares. Somebody who has never had Happy New Year said to him, nor has he said it to somebody else, is Mr. Steve Carlin.
And I've never had a new year that itself is actually happy, not just the greeting.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not depressed for you, but I appreciate your depression because here we are in January. Nothing's going on in your life.
Like there's no sunshine.
No.
Baseball's months away.
Yeah. It's
Lent is coming.
Due to pre-recording, we don't know the situation with the Packers. That may be a grace. But yeah, you're a pretty miserable person around this time of year. Just because there may be other miserable people who are listening or watching, what gets you through it? Because obviously you're a fairly functional person.
Well, a lot of that's fake, I would say.
Sorry. you got me. You held your face. Heather is also here.
Yeah.
She's not fake.
Yeah, not at all.
That was really funny. I didn't think you were gonna say that. I'm reading "Don't Kill Myself" books. You said the book was for a friend, but yeah, when will it actually? What's your first? So, in Texas, where we are, why you like coming this time of year? I'm like turning into an old man. I used to love cold weather because I'm like, I hate the heat. I hate living in Texas. And it's all stupid. Then you realize this is awesome. Our weather 9 months out of the year is really, really great. Really 10 months. And so I get tired of the cold quicker the older I get. And in February, we always get a little 78 degrees and sunny. Like we'll get like a week, before it goes back into the 60s and 40s. When does that happen for you where you think, you know what? I'm going to keep going.
I would say that you can't have just one milestone. You need a lot of little ones. And so I look forward to, once you get to about Valentine's Day, the odds of having just the Arctic blast where it's below zero for a week, that drops significantly.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that would be like the top of the risk factor is the middle of February for the Arctic blast.
Generally, it's going to happen in January or maybe the first week. Now, this just means it's probably going to happen this year, right? It can happen. We've had it in March. We had a blizzard on Mother's Day one time. But the odds of just getting a sustained...
Steve's low point in life.
Yeah. The odds of a sustained, it hurts your skin to go outside, I usually think by Valentine's Day, reduce. Also, around that time, the sun actually starts to generate a little bit of warmth. Right now, you go outside, it can be sunny. You're in the sun. It gives you no warmth whatsoever. In February, it does a little bit.
So... I know that you're not a big St. Patrick's Day person because I think you need to restructure your life to help you get through winter. So if I were you, I love Valentine's Day. I think it's, I'm married, as you know. I want to make a big deal of it. I buy my daughter stuff. I do something for Mary Lisa. We never actually go out on Valentine's Day because it's too crowded or whatever, but we do something, and I look forward to it. And I look forward to St. Patrick's Day, which has been a huge day in my life since I was a little kid. You need to just make those 2 days big deals in your life so you have something to look forward to, because you could come off of New Year's Eve and day, okay, you got all the college football, and then you kind of coast through NFL playoffs. You got the Super Bowl, a huge event in your life. Then you get Valentine's Day, and then you just got to make it somewhere. There's probably going to be an Ash Wednesday in there, which only affirms you. You make it to St. Patrick's, and you've kind of gotten through March.
But nothing is going to make me more sad than having to eat corned beef and cabbage.
You don't.
That's
do
worse
that.
than the weather.
That's not what it's about. You don't have to cook Irish food.
Okay.
The shortest book in the world's an Irish cookbook.
All right. What do you do? How do you
drink.
celebrate it?
You drink.
Okay.
And you have a party, and you
All
go
right.
to mass, and you do something. Put on
Okay.
Irish music.
All right.
I've never known anybody that didn't put on Irish music and you weren't in a better mood, especially on St. Patrick's Day.
I do have one of my mini milestones in March, and that is effective March 1st. I will no longer shovel the driveway. I will wait for it to melt. It'll melt, and I'm not doing it anymore. But then a few years ago, we got 21 inches of snow in the last week of March. So
unbelievable.
that I had to. But otherwise, I look forward to just not shoveling.
You had 21 inches of snow the last week of March?
Yeah.
Jeez.
That is, okay, I'm on your side. Forget it. There's no hope. That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe you didn't grow up doing something for St. Patrick's Day just because of the time of year. You can just be like those secular people that just use it as an excuse to have a party.
Yeah, I
That's
guess so.
basically what I'm telling you to do.
It feels fraudulent for someone who's not Irish and has no Irish anywhere in my family or the family I married into to be the guy that holds the St. Patrick's Day party. Someone should invite me to their party. The listeners can invite me to their St. Patrick's Day party.
See, that's what's shameful because in Wisconsin, there's tons of Irish, as you know, and I don't know.
Where?
I don't know.
I don't think there are.
Like, they're all like
There's some in Milwaukee,
Norwegian.
but
Oh, okay. So I just
everybody's German.
I thought you'd have like, what was it, like Callahan, the Tommy Boy guy.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have like Bill Callahan's Irish St. Patrick's Day party, and everybody's invited. You don't have that.
There's a huge in Milwaukee Irish fest. I think it might be the biggest Irish fest in America, but I don't know. I'm not Irish, so I don't go.
Gosh, well, good luck in your winter. I tried to help.
I
help.
appreciate it.
You have anything to add on this?
You did try to help.
I did. I was like, hey, whatever. President's Day, make it a big deal. Like, give yourself a little milestone to get yourself through the winter. You always have
shovel
to.
No shovel day.
The human psychosis tells us
Oh.
we always have to have something to look forward to.
We have something that we call in Wisconsin Truck Day,
Yeah.
which is the day that the truck full of equipment leaves the Brewers Stadium to head to Arizona for spring training.
That's really
See,
specific.
But that's cool. I would want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not a Brewers fan, I'm like, that just sounds like
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Truck Day.
What does that mean to be a part of that?
It's just a sign that there's hope.
You watch it. You watch it on camera.
They-
By the way,
happen?
I'm going to refute your racist comment earlier about Irish. Well, I don't participate. Do you acknowledge Juneteenth at all? You're not black. You're like, I'm not Irish. I don't celebrate St.
I
Patrick's
feel
Day.
like the banter section is increasingly trying to play. You were a January 6th.
Yeah.
You celebrate Juneteenth, don't you?
You're a racist. Yeah, it's hard to celebrate St. Patrick's Day when all you have in your closet is a bunch of KKK uniforms. Everywhere, and you travel a lot, so you know this. Everybody in Texas, but it's really a nationwide thing, they feel like they're supposed to have like Coronas or Dos Equis on Cinco de Mayo.
Right.
They're not Mexican, but they're appreciating.
Sure.
They didn't even win that battle. But
Like the Trump tweet from 2016.
exactly. Nobody has better tacos than me. Nobody has a better taco salad. These are the best in Trump Tower. It's just like that. So people, you can go and eat Mexican food on Cinco de Mayo and sort of participate in the festivities without it being. The
guess-
airports are hilarious because they have all their. I've been in like Chicago or Seattle, and it's near Cinco de Mayo, and they have all this like Mexican decorations and everything. Coronas are on special. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a stretch.
So, look, I'm going to stretch myself. I'm going to use this challenge as
Yeah.
an opportunity for personal growth and development. I have a friend whose name is Mike McCarthy, not the former Packer and Cowboys coach.
Oh, okay.
A different Mike McCarthy.
That's hysterical, by the way.
And he's also a big football fan. And he will dress up. I think he usually wears like a green suit to mass
Yeah.
and adjacent to it. So I know that Mike will be able to help me guide me through this so that I can live up to what you're challenging me to today.
And since you are a culinary expert, as we know, you should cook like real shepherd's pie, which is lamb, not beef.
Okay.
Lamb in Ireland. Americans, you have the shepherd's pie, and it's like ground beef and carrots. It's gross. But you should make like lamb and potatoes.
Okay.
You like lamb, and find
I
a
do
real
very
good
much, yeah.
Irish dish, Irish stew with lamb. So.
This
Yeah,
is to
put a
help me
little-
get over my anti-Irish racism. I will be doing what Matt Walsh described as doing the work. We're doing
You're
the work.
doing the work. You're making reparations for your hatred of the Irish. You're like, I was like, are there any Irish people in Wisconsin? No, we don't let them around here. Yeah.
I mean, reparations, cultural appropriation. I don't know. Pick which one you want.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a fun culture to celebrate. Everybody loves
Sure.
the Irish.
Yeah, everybody.
So I get reparations or appropriation, one of the two.
Yeah.
Or is it like Aladdin? I can
It's
try some of
both?
column
I
A
think
and
it's
all of column B.
both.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I'm not Irish. I don't care. The hell with them. Okay.
I'll do it and I'll document it.
All right.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll document it. All of that so we could discuss embryo adoption. All right. We've talked a lot about IVF, as we should. And we'll put some of those other podcasts on the webpage. But we need to kind of give an update on the IVF landscape, which, of course, is now being funded by the federal government, unfortunately. IVF is definitely in the category of we have really good intentions and you can trust us. And it's like, no, that's not going to be good. There's a population problem, and Trump and all the government, they decided IVF was the solution to it, which is really stupid. And there were a lot of people that kind of fought against that, including myself. But it was sort of inevitable because he made the promise that he was going to fund it. But we want to start by basically saying that IVF is still the wild, wild west.
Yeah. Everything is regulated, right? You want to wash your car and it's regulated what you can do with the soap. Everything is. But with IVF, it's crazy. Nobody really knows about regulation. As a result, nobody actually knows how many frozen babies are in storage facilities. There's estimates that suggest it's the one that I feel most comfortable with is 1.5 million based on what I've read.
Yeah.
Which is up since we put out a number and what to say when to. If you gathered all of the frozen embryos in the United States of America and put them in the same warehouse, it would become one of the biggest cities in America, right between San Diego and San Antonio.
Wow.
So massive. And what we see here too is it's not just New York, California, Illinois. Even the most pro-life states in the country are gung-ho on IVF. We saw that when the Supreme Court of Alabama ruled that if you destroy a frozen embryo, that is, according to the law, an act of violence against a minor. And everybody, I think, would recognize that as reasonable, except for suddenly you get the Alabama legislature and governor rushing to enact protections, not for unborn babies, not for frozen embryos, but to enact protections in law for both criminal and civil for in vitro providers. So even Alabama, the state that's got the strictest pro-life protections with regard to abortion in the country, rushed to protect the IVF industry.
I think that's because it's personal, and much like actually the homosexual issue, if you know somebody who's gay or you know somebody who's used IVF or as a product of IVF, you're like, yeah, but my son is gay or my cousin was, from IVF. And so it's personal. You don't want to be like you're going against them, which of course you're not. You're not going against them. We're not saying that the children that were a result of IVF have half the dignity of us and are lesser citizens. And that's not the point. The point is that the process is unethical. And there's no justification for it whatsoever as far as artificially creating, through artificial means, creating 8 babies so that 1 can survive or 3 can survive and maybe 1 from those 3. And this process is how we ended up with this Brave New World warehouse with 1.5 million frozen embryos.
All we're getting to is because so many people have it in their minds that they have a right to have children, which is not true. We have a right to set up the environment to be able to pursue having that right, but you don't have a right to have children in the same way that you have, other basic rights. And
which many people see as harsh.
It is, yeah, people see that as harsh. And I think a lot of people look at that and will say, well, that's easy. That's easy for you to say if you have kids.
They do say that,
for you to say,
and I think that they're right.
Yeah.
It is easier for me to say. I have 8 kids, and we've been very, very blessed.
We've got an odd situation in our culture, though, where something being hard is automatically seen as a but it's hard. Like I don't, but somebody's got homosexual tendencies, so it's hard. Yes, it's hard. Everybody has crosses to bear, and we tend to want to get rid of the cross rather than have the strength to carry the cross.
Well, but it's twofold in our culture. So you're a freak and irresponsible if you have 8 kids.
Yep.
Or you're entitled and your life is easy because you didn't have fertility problems and you were blessed with 8 kids, and these people have to go in vitro. So, it's lose-lose depending on, what you're trying to argue these days. But philosophically, which we don't like to think about a lot, are we entitled to children? No, we're not. Just as human beings, there's always going to be illnesses or problems, no matter what your background is, and this is where religion and science collide. Is if we can do something, to quote the great Dr. Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park, should we do it? And our culture these days says, yes, it's going to give me temporary gratification. It's going to give me the baby that I want. It's going to, do whatever. And so I want that. But we don't think about the ethics of it. There's no morality. And that's what's very dangerous.
Well, it builds on top of, it keeps building and building and building. So we get to the point where we have a right to have children. We have a right to have children in any way possible. But then you get to a point where you have couples who are looking at this like, okay, but IVF is expensive and we have a right to have children, and we've been told by doctors we can't have children any other way. This is the only answer and we can't afford it. So now we have the right to money, maybe government funding, and it just keeps on getting, like you said, it's the Wild West. It keeps building off of all of these
guided
misguided mercy. And like you said, this is good intention. This is well intentioned. And of course, I think all of us can understand the desire, the strong desire, which is a natural desire to want to be a parent, to want to have children, to want to take care of children and raise children to be good people in this world and leave a legacy.
This is one of those areas where we've all dealt with it, where we give a talk or IVF comes up or somebody reads What to Say When, and they're pro-life in every other sense. We're like, my grandson was conceived via IVF.
Yes.
But I think that logic sort of falls apart. Obviously, that grandson is made in the image and likeness of God and deserves protection and deserves to be loved and cherished. But nobody's out saying, you know what? How can you be against rape? My grandson was conceived in rape. Everybody instinctively knows that. You could probably say the same. Maybe we're morally relativistic enough where we wouldn't say it about adultery anymore. But I think generally people are not saying adultery is okay because...
Well, they had the baby.
Yeah.
He got her pregnant, but he paid for the baby or paid for the abortion.
That's the argument with these politicians right now is, why are you against more babies? And it's like, we're not against more babies. We're against more babies being used as commodities and being left frozen and not actually given the chance at life because you're creating more babies to stick them on ice.
To go into the homophobic section of this podcast, what makes this different?
Get a graphic for that.
Steve surrounded by really nice, friendly gay people, and he's just looking around terrified.
Put Steve's awkward face on there. The awkward face.
But there is a difference in talking about IVF in 1995 and 2025, because what is behind this a lot now are same-sex couples wanting to adopt embryos and raise children. That has definitely set this issue on fire. Because it's, hey, they're willing to raise children. You say we're in a demographic winter, Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. Well, why don't we unfreeze some of these babies or promote IVF so all these wonderful gay couples can raise children?
Or thruples or polycules. I just learned that word.
Oh, wow. Good one.
Yeah.
You learn words like this when the sun doesn't come out for 7 months.
Maybe the cause of the sun doesn't come out.
This is Wisconsin's fault.
And I refuse to celebrate anything Irish. Dirty people. But this is a big problem, and it's a big sticking point because the Catholic Church is the only one that definitively lays all this out step by step. Okay, and not hardly anybody really likes what they have to say, but they also can look up at the end of the day and say, well, we didn't create this brave new world, you did. So now you're trying to generate babies so that you can give them to marriages that don't exist in our viewpoint. Like, gay marriage doesn't exist. There's no such thing. It's between a man and a woman, and there has to be a commitment there, and you can't, put a child in that position. And that is different from a mom getting pregnant out of wedlock and being a single mom, right? This is, you can't create children through natural means. You are going to now pay a woman, okay, to be your gestational prostitute so that you can have a baby. Did you like that one? Those t-shirts
harsh.
are now available at the 40 Days for Life store. But it is.
Slut walks and
They are.
prostitutional.
I just came up with that on the fly. Gestational prostitute. That's what they are. And whenever,
mercy.
the surrogacy disaster, and then, of course, through natural law, the poor mom, the surrogate mother who's trying to earn $10,000 becomes attached to the baby. And then maybe it has Downs. And now the homosexual couple or the other couple doesn't want the baby because it has Downs. And we've talked about all those horrible cases. But this is what happens when you ignore natural law and you say, we are going to create human life for our own use. And we're going to ignore any other consequences because the more babies, the merrier.
And that ultimately takes us to the main thrust of this podcast, which is not necessarily strictly IVF. It's 1.5 million frozen babies. What do you do with them? What now? IVF is immoral. Okay, maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but what do you do with them all? And this is where we see entering the picture the concept of snowflake baby adoptions. 1997, Nightlight Christian Adoptions began working with families that had frozen embryos in storage to place those embryos for adoption. And this is a trademarked phrase, by the way, snowflake baby.
Yeah.
But the Snowflake Embryo Adoption Program is now the world's largest embryo adoption agency. So families can adopt these frozen embryos and then have them implanted in the woman of the couple and bring them to term and raise these children. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? And what are the many and various moral considerations that play into answering that question?
It's an ongoing theological and ethical discussion because I hear this from time to time from people who are passionate about it from both sides. I've actually met some couples who have adopted a snowflake baby.
Me too.
And one of them I met a few years ago, and they had a little 4-month-old baby that was a snowflake baby. And in this couple, I think they saw this as multiple things. They did not have trouble conceiving. They were able to conceive, but this was very much about rescuing these children and giving them a chance at life for them, which I think is very honorable, and they're obviously seeing the value of these human beings and trying to honor their dignity. So it's one of those things that what do you do at this point? Because we have created this problem, like you've pointed out. We've created this problem where we even have all of these human beings that are on ice in the first place. And so is the ethical thing to leave them there until they die, quote unquote, naturally, because this is not a natural thing to begin with? Or do you give them a chance at life? Now, for those who are against adopting this because they say all this is doing is entering into this industry and helping it, I think they would say, tell that to a child who was rescued, who was an embryo on ice who was rescued.
And that's the personal thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll tell that to somebody who, feels they have no other option than to have an affair or be gay, or I know I'm using these extreme examples, but the IVF thing is unnatural from the get-go. So no matter how many times you go down the line, we do this with science all the time. Mm-hmm. You're just trying to justify it when you started out as an unnatural, premise that we can create a kid in a lab, create a bunch of kids in a lab and pick one. Okay, so now we have the frozen siblings. What do? Well, we thaw them out and we give them to couples who raise them, And if we're willing to do that out of the goodness of our heart, then what happens when we're doing it out of the evil of our heart? And this is why the church's teaching, as to my knowledge still today, it isn't ongoing, is you have to leave the children in their natural state, which is frozen. So that's the, no pun intended, coldest viewpoint that some people see. This is like evil Catholic Church 101. So instead of a loving couple adopting this frozen embryo, you, church, think it's better to leave them frozen. You don't care about tithing. You don't care about more parishioners. You want to leave these babies frozen. And the church's answer is yes, because that is currently their natural state.
I think that's one side. I don't think there's an official church teaching.
I don't think it's not official, but that's a pretty strong one. I won't name the priest who's the leader on this, mm-hmm. but it's not the minority.
Sure.
Right. And I understand that. I understand that because there has to be a global moral authority that makes sense of every step along the way, that says no in the face of everybody saying yes. The other thing, and I'll go through the evil intentions, which is my 6-month-old has liver cancer. And technically, the doctor said that if we were to thaw one of those babies out, my son's not going to die till he's 4. But if we could get one of those embryos to be a year and a half, their liver could save the life of my child.
This is getting very
Harvesting organ-ish.
Yeah.
How? So this
The
is
Island. I've mentioned that movie on this
So
show
this is-
before. It kind
yeah.
of reminds me of that. Ugh.
So what? This is my point on this, because this is where we're like, what's it gonna be like in 50 years? Let's go crazy and put up there are no wrong answers. Throw it up on the chalkboard. So what ethically have we done to show that we would not be willing to do that? The first, honestly, to bring this up was Michael J. Fox, who we love because we love Back to the Future and we feel bad for all of his suffering. But he was adamant. Why should all these people suffering when these embryos can help us? That was the embryonic stem cell debate. That was 20 years ago. And of course, even then, people were like, this is kind of creepy. But if you're watching, if we're going to do the humane thing and you're watching babies die because they have a bad heart or they have a bad liver or they have a bad kidney, and we have 1 million frozen embryos just sitting there, just wasting away, like, where's your heart?
Yeah.
We can run down kind of the pros and cons of this argument. Is it moral or not? There's a lot of pro-lifers that think this embryo adoption program is moral, starting with the Snowflake Program Executive Director, Beth Button. And I think even though she's obviously has a conflict of interest here in that she's the executive director of the program, this is a Christian adoption agency. I think these folks, regardless of where you come down on the issue, I think they have good and noble intentions. And she said, there's nothing to stop an embryologist from creating 30 embryos for a family in their 40s that only wants one kid. Embryo adoption is a great solution. You have the Southern Baptists who put out a statement against in vitro fertilization, a resolution really, and they encourage infertile couples to consider adopting frozen embryos. You go back 20 years now, and George W. Bush invited 21 snowflake baby families to the White House to celebrate that they were given the gift of life. And President Bush said, rather than discard these embryos created during in vitro fertilization or turn them over for research that destroys them, these families have chosen a life-affirming alternative. 21 children here today found a chance for life with loving parents, end quote. You also have the parents of the first snowflake baby. Her name is Hannah Streggy. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but baby Hannah, she's now an adult, and the parents there consulted with Focus on the Family founder, Dr. James Dobson, who encouraged them to pursue this, saying embryos are human lives and they need to be adopted in the event that families responsible for their creation are unable to use them. So that's on the pro side. On the con side,
And that's all very hard to disagree with.
yeah,
I think this is why, especially as a Catholic, why I'm interested in the other side, which is you have to leave them frozen. That's their natural state. Because it just, whenever something seems like, of course, they're just frozen and we have these loving families, like what George W. said, what James Dobson said, like that just makes sense. The other side sounds so absurd. The Catholic stance sounds so absurd. I know it's not the official Catholic stance, but that argument I'm more interested in because it's so like, what is wrong with you?
Well, I wanted to include some of these references because this isn't some guy on the internet. This is Dr. Dobson. This is President Bush. There are some, I think, voices of actual moral authority here, even though I'm not sure that I...
You have Father Tad, who I was about to reference, but I'm like, I'm going to protect his name or whatever. So yeah, it's Father Tad, who's gold and a genius.
It is worth noting, perhaps, that some abortion supporters have actually gotten on this train of the snowflake babies. Abortion advocate Deb Roberts, she gave birth to 2 snowflake babies. I guess that's trademark, so rescued, whatever you want to call it, embryos. And she said, most people don't know that embryo donation exists, either as a donor or a recipient. They're just not aware, and most people will say, I wish I knew about this sooner. And so she started her own embryo adoption agency to mainstream the practice. It's not kind of this niche evangelical Christian thing, but now everybody can be partaking in embryo adoption. And her clients include heterosexual couples, gay men using surrogates, and older single women.
That doesn't surprise me. This isn't the argument of against it, is that, of course, the Planned Parenthood director wants it because the whole view of the human person is control. We kill you, we create you, it's up to us, and whatever means possible. So I understand that philosophy. There's no line in the sand of protecting life based on dignity that comes from God. So they can do that. Like, this is great. I'll freeze my own babies and sell them. I do go. Well, I don't want to delay you from going to Father Tad. If you nail his last name, I'll give you a T-shirt.
Smith, right?
Yeah. Pachulitsky?
No, Paholchek. It's Father Tad Paholchek.
Okay.
Come on, people.
All right.
Come on.
That's impressive, number one. Number two, had you heard him speak a lot on television where he's being introduced and you heard the reporter say it a lot? That's how you know it?
No.
Or the radio?
No.
You listen to a lot of Catholic radio.
That's right.
Say it again. I just want to look at it as you say it.
Father Tad Paholchek.
As far as Polish names go, this is not that absurd.
It's not, but the polls crack me up. And just for since we're on this and it's a heavy topic, we can lighten it up with Father Tad's last name. Pacholczyk.
It's a dumb question. Is that Polish or is it some sort of other Slavic or Eastern European?
He's Polish. I think
Polish?
I remember
Okay.
from talking to him that he's Polish. So, okay.
Well, he would be those who would argue against embryo adoption. There's a lot of pro-lifers that would say that even if you're not manufacturing these embryos in the laboratory, you're still materially supporting the process. And Father Tad kind of takes an economic look at it. He says if embryo adoption were to become standard practice in the current largely unregulated climate of the fertility industry, this could actually stimulate the production of yet more embryos.
Right.
IVF clinic operators would be able to placate themselves by saying, we don't really need to worry about producing extra embryos because there will always be somebody willing to adopt any that are left over. It could offer the clinics an excuse to continue and even expand their current immoral practices.
So my really end of the world extreme example of that was what I mentioned earlier on the we would never harvest their organs and thaw them out to save other children. I don't think we would, but I think we could easily with what we've done.
What would stop us?
We've sold baby body parts. We're leaving babies on the table to die who survive an abortion. Now all of a sudden we're so sophisticated we would never save a 2-year-old with liver cancer because we could thaw out a younger liver and do a transplant. So the availability, I think Father Tad's right. I think it definitely loosens the belt and says, you know what, we can produce as many as we want because somewhere down the line when we're dead and don't worry about this at all, there'll be some mystical families out there that adopt all these children and clean up our mess.
I think it's a compelling point. I don't think it's an exhaustive point because you can imagine a world, let's say that the entire society comes to our senses and we say no more production of embryos in laboratories. Think about it as the slave trade was stopped before slavery was actually prohibited. Okay, so there's no more production, but we still have 1.5 million. What do we do with them? And that Father Tad's objection here does not address that. So I think we can look at others. We've got bioethicist Dr. G. Kevin Donovan. By the way, I like that when you start with just your first initial. I'm going to go by S. Joseph Carlin from now on the podcast.
Is Joseph your middle name?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'd be even cooler.
Yeah.
You're SJK?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm going to ask Jill if she can put together a lower third now as S. Joseph Carlin. I think people would take me more seriously.
I think so too.
Yeah, when you use an initial to start off with, you mean business.
Nobody who's not important has ever done that. You don't have...
And, okay, St. Kevin. Kevin is his middle name, I guess. I don't know what the G is. St. Kevin of Ireland, Irish saint. And then Donovan, a great Irish name. So
We're back to St. Patrick's.
we know you hate this guy.
Oh,
He makes the case that embryo adoption violates the dignity of the embryos by gestating and birthing them in a manner contrary to the proper pathway of procreation, which then requires another moral wrong. So he's saying essentially there is a right, natural, proper, and licit way to bring life into the world, and it does not involve being implanted in another woman's womb. That is inherently immoral itself, and therefore you can't do it.
Okay. To use another analogy, if Pope Leo and Franklin Graham have a press conference and they've got Elon and Joe Rogan next to them, and they're like, children are a blessing of the Lord. We arrows in the quiver, everything. We need more children. And we need to, bring those children into the world. We here ask every Christian man to commit adultery over the next 3 months and get as many women pregnant as humanly possible because we need more children.
Elon's already doing that.
He's already doing that. He's been volunteering for that his entire life.
Yep.
But this is like from Franklin Graham and from the Pope and from everybody else, okay? The atheists would be like, okay, y'all have kind of lost your minds.
Or they'd be like, it's about time.
Kind of religion I didn't sign up for.
That's right.
But
We've turned them.
We turned them, yeah. But that whole notion of, well, we need more babies in the world. Okay, well, there's a lot of ways to get babies that are, what's the term? Immoral. I forget what the phrase was in here. But the unnatural way, the immoral way, right? It's just like why you don't tell, a 15-year-old gets pregnant out of wedlock and has the baby. That doesn't mean 15-year-old should go and get pregnant out of wedlock.
Right.
Right. And so I think that the good outcome doesn't justify the way you get there. This is like the traditional ethic argument.
Yeah.
And if the end doesn't justify the means. And of course, the snowflake babies are amazing and we treat them with dignity. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't a long road to that. One of my issues with this, as we read over this, because let's just forget about the stupid Catholic Church and morals and all this other stuff. Like, this is awesome. If you're infertile, you can go get a snowflake baby. A lot of people don't do this. I don't have the answer to that.
Like, why wouldn't they do it?
Yeah, like I think most mainline Christians, I mean, how many Catholics are against this? Probably nobody. Only 8% are against IVF, right? Even though it's the church's teaching. So the Christians they've all kind of caved on this in general in IVF. I don't understand how there's not bribes for one of these 1.5 million. There's a lot of infertile couples. It's amazing how few people do the snowflake adoption.
I think a lot of them want their own child, and that's probably it's a pride versus pride thing. They want their own child, but they can't have it, but they don't want somebody else's child, even though that's at that point their only shot of giving birth, I guess, to a baby, even though the baby's not genetically theirs, and it's not adoption of a whole other child out and not having the experience of having pregnancy and all of that. I think it's just a pride versus pride thing. Do you know what I mean?
You're saying it's very similar to infertile couples who just don't adopt at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be. It could be. But it's also one of those things that how many people know that there's such a thing? How many people know that there are snowflake babies?
If you really want kids and you can't have kids,
but you still want to have the experience of giving birth to a child?
Yeah, and the adoption process for the born kids is pretty rough.
It can be.
But the snowflake process, from what I've seen, is much easier.
You're saying to be able to do it, or the process for the children themselves?
The process for the children, you got to pay the surrogate mom.
Or you may not even need a surrogate mom.
You may not even need a surrogate mom.
This is in many cases marketed as a cheaper alternative to IVF.
But a lot of people don't do it.
Yeah.
That's what's surprising to me. And I have a theory in that I think a lot of people think this sounds good, but it's weird. And weird is a category. And I have met snowflake babies, and I remember coming away going, wow. And I remember the first one, the mom was like, this is Billy. He's 7, but he's really 11 because he was frozen for 4 years. And I was like, that's friggin' weird.
That's
right.
Well,
you want to hear something weird? Doing the research for this,
that's outside of this?
Oh, yeah.
There were moms that were the same biological age as the babies that they were having implanted in them.
See, I just think that is in people's psyche and nature of why the line's not out the door to adopt these snowflake things. And even when George W., I watched the press conference. He's like, you're not just a frozen piece of ice. You're a gift of God and a snowflake. And he signs it, and everybody's like, oh, that was neat and kind of strange. And I think, yeah, he's got the squinty eye, and he says something like, you're not a product of biology. You're a gift of God. And he signs it. And you're like, no, they're kind of came out of a lab, and they are a gift of God, but
they're both.
They were manipulated by the creation.
Next time we have an election, I'm going to vote a single issue voter strictly based on who has the coolest voice for Sean to impersonate.
Yeah, there you go. That's
wow. Well, we haven't gotten into all
method to go by.
All the different characters.
But there was another one. I may be jumping the gun because I don't remember seeing this on here. But there was one that was not too long ago, like within the last year, where there was this viral TikTok video or something of a 26-year-old, something about somewhere around that age, who wanted to have her sibling implanted in her womb. Do you remember that story?
Vaguely.
She wanted to, she had siblings on ice. And in order for her to save them, she decided now I don't know if she ever went through with it. I never heard the follow-up, but she made this case and publicized it on her social media. And that was the thing, that she would then be pregnant with her sibling.
This is why I wish Michael Crichton was still alive, God rest his soul, because he was the first sort of popular Catholic author who wrote Jurassic Park. He wrote Eaters of the Dead. He wrote Sphere, great book. But everybody at the end of Jurassic Park is like, of course they had it coming. Of course the T-Rex was going to eat you. And the whole time I'm feeling for Dr. Hammond going, no, it was a good idea. Like, it's like going to Disney World or something. Like, you go to the zoo and you get to see a T-Rex. I really support him. No wonder he kind of bent the rules and filled in the DNA and kind of hoped for the best. Like, I understand. But the rest of the world is like, no. If you mess around with nature, it bites you in the ass. And that's basically what we're saying with IVF and with the snowflake stuff. And that's why the snowflake, it didn't occur to me till we were going in and we started writing the books. But I just thought about it from a practical, secular level. In a lot of ways, the snowflake baby is the ice cream milkshake or sundae with 0 calories. You're like, this is really too good to be true, because you can't have babies. The adoption process is hard, and yet this is just going to be delivered on your doorstep. And you're not dealing with a previous bad foster parent or stepdad or whatever. You're getting the baby right out of the freezer, literally. And people don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the numbers, it's amazing how rare this is. And I think it's because I don't know why it is. I don't want to get ahead of myself and go on a rant, but there is a natural introduction of somebody. You say, and parents do this all the time. You say, this is my son, John Paul. I say, this is my son, Seamus, Or they say, this is my son, John Paul, and he's adopted. Oh, it's great, But do you know his biological parents? No, it's a closed adoption or it's an open adoption. There's sort of a natural line of thought of where this kid came from. Like, you want to know the background of the child. And in a snowflake baby, the background goes through a surrogate mom, a freezer for 5 or 10 or 12 years, and these mystery people that did IVF 20 years ago. And I don't think people want to deal with that, because it's weird. And I think that there is still our nature takes over, and you're like, I don't know if this was right. And just answering the questions alone. You and I get annoyed when we have name our kids after some weird saint or something, and relatives comment or question on it. And it's like a small thing. But where your kid came from over and over and over again, I think I think people think about that.
So you're saying with all the sci-fi movies that we've had that have conditioned us and maybe numbed us or prepared us for some of this, there's still a sci-fi line that people draw. Like, this is too weird, this is too sci-fi for me to.
Yes, and they don't want to admit it.
Okay.
Because the problem with the snowflake baby is that you got to tell everybody, you have to justify it. you feel you have to justify it.
Maybe.
Every time I meet one of these kids, they tell me like the date they were frozen.
Oh, okay.
Why would you do that?
Okay. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Because it's just interesting.
I don't know. But it's like, hey, this
Like
is...
you didn't ask. They were offering you the information and...
It's the new wife saying the ex-wife is crazy. It's the instant justification that, they were just frozen, or, they were frozen 4 years, or snowflake babies. It's okay to adopt them. We need more adoption, and I just think there's this natural thing of like,
You're saying the natural law is written on our hearts, and whether we can express it or explain it or not, we've got to feel like we need to somehow square the circle the square.
Yes.
There you go.
And I think we underestimate that, because it's easy for somebody listening to this going, you guys are idiots. They just want kids. They're frozen.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, but there's nothing greater in the world than having a kid. And this is probably the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
The pro-life apologist Stephanie Gray Connors, I like her work.
Yes.
She said
Yes.
she makes a case essentially that children have a right to be carried by their biological mothers, and that it is wrong for a woman to have a child in her womb that is not her child.
So that's a very good, wholesome way of saying what I've been rambling about for 20 minutes. But who argues with that?
I think we get back to the folks who are in favor of it saying, yeah, but
Not every woman can do that.
an imperfect situation.
But
and
she
so you
incites
have
the
to-
rights of her child.
Yes.
So the lawyer for the frozen embryo, since the poor little guy can't talk or defend himself, the lawyer for the frozen embryo says little Billy, who was conceived through IVF from these people 10 years ago, he was denied the right to go through this process. He shouldn't. He should keep his right to not be put into somebody else's womb. Okay? And I think that the kid deserves to be in the womb of the mom. That's a great argument. Because it makes it about the embryo, him or herself.
Right. And not about the adults.
Not about this whole thing is about the adults.
Yeah.
We know.
Well, I don't know if I'd say that, because the families that Heather mentioned that are sincerely seeking to rescue these embryos, I think that is very child-centric. And this,
Can I sound like an a-hole?
it's
Is it
I
too
say
late?
no, it's never stopped you before.
Thank you, Steve.
That was great. That was very good. Thank you. Rescue from what?
From being frozen in perpetuity.
Okay.
Yep.
To me, the greatest argument for it, and I don't think I'm in favor of it, but the greatest argument for it would be Scripture tells us we need to be baptized. This is the way you get baptized, is you have to be born and then get baptized into eternal life.
Have the chance to live their life.
See, now that's a good argument. And I don't know who is saying that, but this is all because of the mess we've got ourselves in.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with what you're saying is that would only Christianize what Father Tad is worried about. Is like, we got to baptize as many for the glory and kingdom of God. Round up 200 more thousand in the next 6 months, boys. We're going to freeze them, thaw them, and baptize them. We'll launch a crusade. In 25 years, we'll have all these young bucks.
We've talked.
I would just unfreeze them for war. We didn't even get into that. That's Jurassic Park. That's Jurassic World, where they want to create the raptors for the military to use. So why couldn't we? Why wouldn't China just have, like, I don't know what they have. We haven't gotten into those stats, but why wouldn't they just unfreeze embryos all day long, just the
100%.
males, to build their army?
We've referenced what the Catholic Church has to say about this topic, but we haven't dived into it. The Catholic Church doesn't definitively rule out embryo adoption, as we mentioned, but
Yeah, for the record, because I'm making the church look really bad, and probably myself.
the way that they addressed it most was under Benedict, a document called Dignitas Personae. It says, quote, "This proposal, embryo adoption, praiseworthy with regard to the intention of respecting and defending life, presents, however, various problems." So that in itself doesn't say a lot. Basically, those problems are a lot of the things that we've discussed so far.
Right.
What I think is important to note here is that it's obviously very skeptical of it without entirely ruling it out. But you know what it does really hint at is, let's say that this is acceptable. the church is really leaning towards saying it's acceptable unless you have infertility, because then you've got a conflict of interest.
Ooh.
So if you're a family that has children, you're able to have children. Maybe that would be more morally acceptable than if you can't, because you're truly doing it for altruistic motives rather than for selfish motives.
Wow, that's a good point.
This is like turning to the cancer patient and saying, you're not actually not allowed on the roller coaster. Yeah, this is for healthy people.
Now, the response to that, I think, would be, so the idea it's okay if you're infertile, but not if you are fertile, is then the question is asked, so then if you're capable of having children, why aren't you just having your own children? That's what some have said.
I think that's one of the blessings of this issue existing at all, is that what Pope Benedict said and what we've said is the one thing about the parents who want to adopt a snowflake baby is that they want children. Mm-hmm. I mean, they really do. I don't think there's that many that are, closed to having life naturally, like fertile families, which is the point of the whole thing. Yeah, I don't know. I know we're wrapping up here, but I know we're going to end with how horrible IVF is, because that's kind of the start of this. But this is good that we have these conversations, because I don't know of a lot of podcasts that are addressing this, particularly on the snowflake babies, because you end up sounding insensitive and cruel, but there has to be this level of protecting human dignity at some point, because you have to think about generations ahead and what this leads to. Just as that's why you need to have children, or at least be open to life, because the world just wasn't here created for you so that you could live off of it and die. But I think that the snowflake baby debate isn't really that different than it was 20 years ago. Yeah, and that's shocking. Yeah, it's not like, look at how we've changed on homosexuality or abortion, for or against. Like, both sides have kind of gotten stronger. The snowflake thing, people still look at and go, I don't know. And I'm doing that, openly on the podcast, and maybe some of our listeners are, but I don't really have the answer, but I know there's not a good one. Right.
Well, to that, this document we just referenced, Dignitas Personae, all things considered, it needs to be recognized that the thousands, you can tell this is old, the thousands, now 1.5 million, all things considered, it needs to be recognized that the abandoned embryos represent a situation of injustice which in fact cannot be resolved.
Yeah, that's just the answer. And I know we want to resolve everything in our world when we create a problem, but the problem we created are frozen embryos that nobody really wants to deal with.
This gets to a point that you have made in many other contexts, Sean, which is doing nothing is always an option.
Yeah.
And this is where Father Tad says, in my opinion, parents have an obligation to care for their children. In this case, he means by keeping them frozen until there is a reasonable certainty that they have died on their own from decay or freezer burn, which may occur whenever frozen embryos are stored for very extended periods. Perhaps after a few hundred years, all the stored embryos would have died on their own, and they could finally be thawed and given a decent burial. This approach would not involve us in the direct moral agency of ending their lives.
So that's really well put, as hard as it is to write that sentence and read it. That would beg another question, and I promise we'll wrap up, and that is, so they're not in perpetuity. They will naturally have freezer burn, or they will pass away in some way. So that begs the question for me, to the pro-snowflake adoption person, okay, if you're rescuing the snowflakes, surely you should rescue the ones that are closest to decaying.
Some pro-lifers have done that.
Okay, that's impressive. Yeah. And that's good, because that means we're on like the right train of thought, because that would be, I guess, more of a rescue, right? Because they're on the brink of extinction or death or passing away or whatever you call it. I don't want to say freezer burn, but this is a total mess.
There's one other distinction I think we should make, which would have been helpful, I suppose, if I had made it earlier. But what is going on with these frozen embryos? Are they living? Are they not living? Are they potential life, as abortion supporters like to call the fetus? Like, what actually is it? Suspended animation? The freezing process just simply slows down the biological metabolism. So they're living,
Right.
they're alive,
And they are growing.
They're
Just
they're
way,
kind of,
way slower.
it's not unlike when you put something in the freezer. It'll last for a while. It'll last longer than in the refrigerator. It'll last longer than at room temperature. But the same biological processes are still in effect. They're still subject, just at a much, much slower rate.
Yes. Which I did not understand that until just a few years ago. I
Yeah.
always wondered, I don't understand if we can't freeze ourselves. It's like, I know you guys don't watch the superhero movies that much, but the really, really unpopular Batman movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he was Mr. Freeze and his wife was frozen.
Yeah.
And he's like kept her frozen in suspension until he could find a cure for her
Yeah.
whatever disease.
Which is a pretty
she
good
had.
idea.
And so then it was like, but wait a minute, that wasn't real. So how is it that these embryos are frozen? And then it was explained to me that they're not actually completely frozen. They're growing at a much slower rate.
I've looked into freezing, Mary Lisa, and the kids laugh at this, but I had a theory. I don't know if it's true. I need to ask Father Tad. But the years of lack of sleep that Mary Lisa's had, I had a theory that if we just froze her for like a football season, like 3 or 4 months, that she would catch up on all that lost sleep from being up with our kids. And when we thaw her out, she's like totally rejuvenated, right? It's like the energy of like a 25-year-old. And so this is my theory of like, and I say often around our house, this is why we need to freeze mom. And so if the FBI was listening or something, they'd be like, he's for freezing embryos. He wants to freeze his wife. But it's kind of like, you don't get enough sleep. Even if it's 2 weeks, like, would that make up for sleep?
Yeah.
And
Funny.
I believe I had one biologist say, quote, that's stupid and physically impossible. But, you know, it's good to get second opinions.
I
on
like
this kind
thinking
of stuff.
of you bringing it
Solo,
up in the
come
first
on.
place. So, Doc, I got a question.
So, Doc, I got a question.
Yeah, how
You
did this
asked-
come up? In the
yeah.
doctor's office?
No,
At a
I was
party?
no, it's like Mary Lisa like laying on the couch and I just see how exhausted she is from the kids or whatever. And I'm like, what if we could just freeze you and you could make up all that sleep? And she's like, I'm open to whatever, you know. She's like, and then she, like, as if this were serious, she's like, no, I'd missed Mary Kate's first communion or something. Like, she named a real life event we had. I'm like, I don't know how probable this is. Plus, optic wise, I don't know if I can go around and say, yeah, my wife's in the freezer in the garage.
You know the baseball player Ted Williams?
Oh, yeah.
Racer? You know what his fate was? He
What?
died and his family froze his head in a cryogenic storage thing with the hopes that when technology is available, they can reanimate him.
For real?
Yeah.
How expensive?
No, I'd be for thawing his head out and seeing what we could do.
How
like,
expensive
with
is that?
The hitting coaches for the Astros.
He's a really good hitter, Heather.
Unbelievable hitter. Where's the head now? I'm shocked. You're probably going to know the answer.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to
But is it
disappoint
still
you.
frozen?
I believe so.
How long ago was this?
Well, there's a Google for you
99.
later tonight.
1999. I
oh
think?
my gosh. 27-year-old.
I'm definitely Googling that before tonight. Hey Siri, where is Ted Williams' frozen head?
Yeah.
This is the most appropriate ending to this podcast. The IVF podcast, by the way, is season 9, episode 12. We do a deep dive on IVF. We don't get, I don't think, off on all this snowflake stuff. But just IVF, is it good? Is it bad? Why is it good? Why is it bad? We write about this in What to Say When, 1 and 2. And we've done many podcasts, but the best one, the most comprehensive, is season 9, episode 12. And we don't freeze Mary Lisa. We don't have Ted Williams' head in that episode. So you may not enjoy it as much as you did this one. So
Can I say where his head is?
yeah,
So that listeners
well, we're doing all the research for you
who live there might.
She didn't just not wait till tonight. She didn't wait for the podcast.
now.
It says, according to this AI overview, it is currently in Scottsdale, Arizona.
The hottest place in the country. That's the worst place to be frozen. There's a lot of risk.
Like we've all seen Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah, but Ted Williams' head could just be in your backyard, like on the
This
ground.
says the head and the body are kept in separate stainless steel tanks filled with liquid nitrogen at sub-zero temperatures. Wow.
The best Frozen movie, by the way, is not Frozen. It's Forever Young. Great movie
Oh my
with
gosh.
Jamie Lee Curtis and Mel Gibson. Great movie.
Encino Man.
Forever. With all due respect to Encino Man, Forever Young. Great movie to watch with your kids. Great movie. So We apologize for whatever we need to apologize for. Please rate, review, and share this podcast, and we will see you next time. God bless you.